How enticing was that when the job opened and that whole process started?
Yeah, great opportunity. I mean, Jim Knowles and I have been together from working camp at Duke in 2012, so that relationship's really strong. Whether we're working together or not, we talk a lot. And so the opportunity to get back in was getting back with family, so it was great.
With such a safety-driven defense, I imagine the familiarity you guys have will help that transition process.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're probably one step ahead of most coordinator connections to a position coach from a standpoint of knowing what's coming and being able to build a lot of things together from a system standpoint. So, yeah, it's been great.
Matt, what was it like getting here again and then the Caleb Downs commitment? Was that a whirlwind to start kind of your second tour here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the transition back was unique. Not a lot of times in college football do you go back to a place that you were, so you could have the same realtor, you could have your wife living in the same area. That kind of stuff is awesome. But yeah, to be able to get Caleb here was fantastic, and he hit the ground running. I came here that Wednesday night, got here, had a team meeting Thursday morning, hit the road recruiting. So it's been fast paced, but that's how it should be.
Yeah, I know you know some of the guys in the safety room already. Lathan comes to mind first. How is he doing, first of all, from his recovery standpoint, and what's it like being with some of those guys?
Yeah, it's been great. Again, familiarity, to be able to know guys, know about their families, they know you and your story, and be able to have real authentic relationships. I think that helps. It starts with that. If not, you're putting in a lot of work just to get to know somebody. And obviously a lot of that is still happening with new faces and things from there. But yeah, Lathan's doing great. He's a guy who's the heartbeat of that room and has been through hardship before and continues to battle back. He's a warrior.
Coach, can you talk about your relationship with Coach Knowles? What
Yeah.
you guys have, the synergy that you have?
Yeah, for sure. It's family. And knowing Jim from the time I was a little D2 coach back in the day when I first started coaching, and Jim was defense coordinator at Duke, and to be able to start that relationship and then be able to coach safeties and take over his defense and calling it in that system. But yeah, it's about real relationships in any business, and to be able to have a close one with him has definitely been awesome.
How'd the Indiana experience help you?
Yeah, it was great. Again, to be able to see the Big Ten from a different lens, I think that's valuable to be able to do that. Tom Allen was great to be able to work for and learn from a strong defensive coach and learn his system. So I think there's a lot of value from that standpoint. And then, you learn and you're able to apply. So some ideas that maybe you didn't know before and some that you can enhance that were already, in a system. So it was great to be able to learn from him and be able to call plays in the Big Ten.
I assume Sonny's position is still being evaluated going forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think? I guess what's the push and pull there between looking at him at safety or whether that's going to be the best position for him or maybe it's somewhere else? And how are you evaluating that?
Yeah, I think it starts with a dynamic playmaker. You guys have been able to see that on plenty of Saturdays here. From the time that he first came in here, had a starting role in that Georgia game his first year. So Sonny's dynamic in what he could do. He's a unique combination of ability to run, cover, tackle, mentality, size. I mean, he's got a lot of things and attributes from there. So yeah, without getting into specifics, I mean, we're going to take a look at a number of different things for him and put him in the best position for him to be successful and the team to be successful.
Just taking a look at a number of different things. I mean, he'll play some linebacker, play some safety, or that's the team.
Yeah, I'll let Jim be able to answer all that kind of stuff from a system standpoint, with schematics and things like that. But obviously, he's got a lot of skills to be able to do a bunch of stuff.
If he does play linebacker, what do you think about just sort of the number of pieces you would have left? Obviously, to potentially lose or not have somebody like Sonny in the safety position. From your position, I imagine you'd want to have him. But what do you feel about the rest of the room if that is the way things
Yeah, I've been impressed with the depth across the board. I think that there's guys that have played big roles. Obviously, Caleb wasn't here, but is here. You've got Malik Hartford, who, started games as a true freshman. There's great depth, I think, across positions on the defense here. It's our job as recruiters to be able to build that. And Jim will get in the specifics of schematics and things like that from there. But yeah, really excited about the playmaking ability of a number of guys on the defense.
Matt, a guy like Caleb, I mean, you don't typically see true freshmen hit the ground running like that to produce that way. Well, when you study him, what sets him apart? What's made him so good at such a young age?
Yeah, I think when you look at safeties is how fast can guys react. And there's two ways you do that. One is mentally. So you guys have met with him already, and you see how sharp he is, the way he can answer questions, articulate. I mean, he's really special from a mental standpoint. And then how fast you can react physically. So if you watch him in agility drills, his body, the functional movement skills are tremendous of him. So if you have a guy that can respond quickly from a mental and a physical standpoint, I think you're a step up on guys from that standpoint. So not only does he have great physical schools, but he can use those in a really efficient way.
Seems like everybody's going to have physical attributes to play at this level. So is mental more important?
I think from an early standpoint, if you said, okay, what's the most important thing for a young player coming into a program like Ohio State to be able to contribute, it's what's between the ears. It's the mentality. It's the way that they can process the game. So that's our job as coaches, to take the physical skills and be able to get them to that point. But as a freshman to be able to do that's really impressive.
Matt, what was your kind of day-to-day role when you were here last time?
Yeah, so my title was analyst, which I'd never been in one of those spots before off the field. But yeah, Jim wanted me to be able to come here and help, install the defense with him and transition, with him from that standpoint. So I've been one of his DB guys, all along, and I think my job was to help, get guys up to speed with what the defense was and what the system was, and then be able to, they were able to tailor that to Ohio State's version of that.
And knowing what you know about this defense is the amount of time you've spent in it. And I know this is Jim's third year, so kind of everyone here is familiar with it now.
Yep.
But even you, I would assume, understand it at a deeper level. How do you think that could enhance what's already sort of been laid down here the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's efficiency first, to be able to be on the same page. And then I think also knowing what it came from helps too, right? If you know the history of something, then you can tweak the end product in a way that, hey, we've done this before, right? We dabbled with that and didn't really work, that type of stuff. So I think to be able to have that history and experience with him will go a long way.
Matt, from that first year you were here helping install, like Jim is obviously, he's not a coach who's just going to sit and say, this is what I'm going to do year after year after year.
Yep.
He changes things. How have you seen him evolve as a coordinator and the defense evolve as well?
Yeah, it's what makes him the best in the country. He's able to adapt. Some guys have a great defense, number one defense in the country, and then it stays the same for a number of years, and people start to catch up with it a little bit, right? It's hard to get a beat on him, and he spends a ton of time. He's probably sitting in his office right now studying what the next move is, So I would say that what makes him special is the way that he could teach and be able to take a system and be able to make it very functional for the guys. But yeah, his ability to adapt, to be able to change.
There was a lot made last year. He wasn't being overly aggressive, kind of just wanted to keep everything safe, stop giving up big plays, and the defense really helped.
For sure.
How much did you see that transition? How much did you see that? How much is that a growth step from what you do?
Yeah, I think it goes to what does it take to win? Right, and that's when you look at, okay, hey, that's what the bottom line is winning games, right, and be able to win it all here and accomplish the goals that we have. So I think for him it was, okay, he's a lot of times in his career been a really aggressive guy to dictate on defense and force offense's hand, where maybe he saw that, okay, hey, what's the prevention of explosives and the trade-off for creating a negative versus keeping the ball in front and inside, and I'm sure that'll continue to adapt over time.
You mentioned Lathan's doing great. Does that mean he's good to go for spring?
Yeah, he's doing a great job from that standpoint. Yeah, so the trainers will have the exact timeline with that, but yeah, he's been great in workouts, leadership. I mean, he's been fantastic.
Is Jordan with you or is Jordan with Tim?
Yeah, so we do a bunch of stuff together, to all make sure we're on the same page. But that position, yeah, Jordan comes out of, obviously the corner pool of guys from Tim's room. But yeah, we do things together to make sure everybody's on the same page in the secondary, which I think is important.
And then from what you've seen of this defense, all of it, what is the potential of this defense this year, do you think?
Yeah, there's no limit on it. I mean, you've got great pieces from the front to the middle of it to the back end of it, and it's on us as coaches to be able to put those pieces in place to accomplish our goals.
What kind of enticement is that for an assistant coach?
It's great. I mean, to be able to have everything right in front of you, I mean, I tell it all the time to recruits, as a player, there's nothing that you long for here at Ohio State. You get it all right in front of you. As a coach, the same thing. Everything that you ever dreamt of or you wanted, you've got right here, and it's our job to take advantage of that.
You talked about the time in Indiana. What does that bring back here? This is Jim's defense, obviously, but what can you maybe tweak, add, give him ideas on that you've done somewhere else under somebody else?
Yeah, for sure. I think, there are parts of systems that you like, and you say, okay, hey, this worked really well. Obviously, you stay familiar with the Big Ten. I know the divisions aren't the same, but you stay familiar with the Big Ten. And I think something that's unique, and Jim's been this way throughout his career too, but being at a Duke or an Indiana, those developmental programs, right? That's different than Ohio State being here a couple years ago. So if you're able to take the development piece of those places and continue to apply that, I think you could have a really good product, which obviously Ohio State has had year in and year out.
How much have they discussed? Coach Day mentioned the possibility of you being involved with special teams or having those responsibilities. Have they ironed out what you might?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be involved in that. I think that'll be a work in progress as we go. But yeah, we've had preliminary conversations from that standpoint too.
Any specific area?
Not right now, but that's I'll let Coach Day be able to touch on that from exactly his plans from there.
Have you previously worked in the special teams area before?
I have, yeah. I've been hands-on with teams every stop that I've been. Even when I've been a coordinator, I would have certain responsibilities within teams, so I've been very familiar with them. I'm passionate about it. I think the best players should be impact guys on special teams as well.
Matt, at this point, you have a lot of D coordinator experience. Why go back to just a position group role at a place like Ohio State rather than looking around for maybe a defensive coordinator position?
This is the best place in the country. You get a chance to be at Ohio State. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. This is home to me. Working with the best coordinator in the country, Jim Knowles. Working for the best head coach in the country, Ryan Day. This place has everything that you ever dreamt of. So to be able to be here and work with the young men on a daily, this is a special opportunity.
They hold recruiting here at the highest standard.
Oh, yeah.
How would you describe yourself as a recruiter, and can you uphold that standard, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I think it starts with relationships, real authentic relationships. I think there's a lot of flash and different things that happen from a recruiting standpoint, but it's about building real authentic relationships. Your job as a coach, the old stage coach, right, is it took someone from where they were to a desired destination. It starts in the recruiting process. Are you able to build authentic relationships and trust and be able to take that young man who's a freshman or sophomore in high school and be able to, over time, get them to where they want to be able to be, and obviously in turn Ohio State gets to where they want to be able to be. So I think real authentic relationships is where it starts.
How willing would you be as a safeties coach to allow one of your safeties to go be the punt returner this year, like Caleb Downs?
Absolutely. When NFL scouts come in, right, what's 53-man roster, you better be able to play on teams, right? So there's no doubt that the safeties better be involved in special teams.
Is there a concern Caleb can't make a 53-man roster down the line? Is that what you're saying?
That's on him to go prove. Yep.
You mentioned relationships. What's it been like kind of getting back to with Tim Walton, and you talked about how you guys are working closely together. What's that relationship like?
Yeah, the OG, as we call him in the building and publicly. He's great. He's the best secondary coach in college football. He's a guy that's played at the highest level at Ohio State, that's coached at the highest levels in college and in the pros, been a coordinator in college and in the pros. So when you start talking about, you see what he's able to do recruiting-wise and the development here, right? So he's one of those guys that there's not a box that he doesn't check. I mean, he checks every single box. So from a guy to be able to work hand in hand with him, what a great honor and opportunity.
Obviously, you were here the first year. Jim Knowles was here, and now seeing it in his scheme in its third year with a lot of players who have been in the system for all 3 years. How are the conversations different that you're having with guys like Lathan about implementing this?
Yeah, I think it's different when you put the film on. When he first came here, it was Oklahoma State film, right? And now it's 2 years of Ohio State film. So when you start talking about what does it look like, these guys are watching themselves on film. And it makes a big difference when you say, okay, what does it look like for those guys? And then what's the application to the Big Ten, right? It changes based on when Jim was in the ACC or the Big 12 or the Big 10, that changes over time. You've seen his defense morph to be able to match the conference and to be able to win those matchup games.
How have you seen the defense morph to match the conference?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unique about if you took the Big 12 when he first came in versus the Big 10, is the Big 12 was guys trying to score a touchdown on every single play, right? And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in the Big 10, but you've got a lot more heavy sets and different things in the Big 10 to be able to, go the distance throughout the season, regardless of what the weather says or things like that, So, each league's a little bit different, and I think he's done a great job, obviously, adapting.
To hit the ground running like you did, where you're here on Wednesday and Thursday you're going down to see Caleb Downs, what was that 24, 48-hour first period like, where portal recruiting really fast and having to meet somebody like Caleb? What was that whole process like? Yeah, what the stakes are when you take the job, and you're ready to go no matter what it is. So you get a call that, hey, this is happening at Ohio State. You pack your bags, you kiss my 2 sons and wife, see you later. They're back in Bloomington right now, and you come here and you go. So no matter what the job is, when you get the orders to be able to do it, it's your job to be able to go get it done. So an exciting time and a lot of fun. Had you met Caleb, because he had been recruited by Ohio State? So was that the first time not the first time you had met him?
I'd met him before.
Did that help at all in terms of recruiting?
I think relationships, period, help. You know what I mean? To be able, whether it's just a handshake or it's to be able to, have a deep relationship from there. I think that definitely helped, especially when things were sped up from that standpoint. But obviously, Tim's relationship with him and family was critically important.
Now, when you talked about players having more familiarity with Jim Knowles and his system, obviously that's a benefit. How long does it take a coach to absorb what he's got?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a learning curve for the coaches, just like there's a learning curve from the players. I remember feeling that way, early on. And, so I think that benefits from there. He's a great teacher regardless, right? So, whether it was any staff or players, he could get anybody caught up to speed from that standpoint. But do I think that's a help? Sure. I think that's a benefit to be able to know a system, adaptations over time, and kind of how we got to where we are.
When did you feel that different comfort to be able to coach it the way he wants to coach?
Yeah, I would say my first year I was actually working with linebackers at Duke. He was the safeties coach at the time, and I took over safeties for him. So he was a walk-around coordinator. So anytime you're taking over somebody's position, you better be on point with that. So I would say after that first spring, feeling good about what the expectation was and what he wanted it to look like from that standpoint. Yeah.
Matt, kind of off that, like you mentioned, obviously the transition's pretty easy now, but from this experience coming here with the defense you helped install that you already know, to maybe even going to Indiana or just going somewhere else where you had to learn defense from scratch.
Yeah.
How is that process different for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if you're learning from scratch, that's a lot of hours by yourself at night. No different than you're studying for a test. Okay, I know this. All right, I got it, and I can apply it. Because to teach it, you better really, really know. If I said I pride myself on doing anything, it's teaching, right? So you better really know that like the back of your hand, And so that was a lot of hours. When guys are going home and hanging with their families, you're not, And so no matter what the job is, I think there's different challenges every single place. You put the work in to be a master of your craft and to be able to apply it.
So is it when you're here and you can get in team meetings, is it just like, okay, I know this, now I need to apply what changed and get the ball?
Yeah, or terminology. There may be something that you say, okay, hey, this is the concept that I'm familiar with, but the terminology changed, right? So then you learn the terminology so you could speak the language, from that standpoint. But it's not, wholesale different than what from that standpoint.
Matt, with the idea of iron sharpening iron, what kind of iron is it for a defensive coach to be combating or working against Ryan Day and Chip Kelly as offensive guys?
Yeah, it's an elite challenge, and task. I thought that from the first time coming here, like that first spring ball to line up across and here's C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison, right? And Jackson the slot, and okay, you better get good fast, right? If not, you're going to get embarrassed on the practice field, And I think that's one of the things that Coach Knowles talks about a lot is the development from a mentality standpoint of the defense of competing every single day. Like, it doesn't matter who's across from you, And I think that helped us take great strides on defense.
What has been your impression of James, who he is as a coach? What have you kind of taken away?
Yeah, obviously knew a lot about him as a player. Unbelievable person, first and foremost. Just be able to come back and get to know him. I heard great things from afar of guys in the building here, and then I've been really impressed with his knowledge base. And you talk about a guy that's won every major trophy from a defensive standpoint here, all-time leading tackler of an NFL franchise. Those skills translate well to being able to relate to guys. He's done it before. He's coached at the highest level. So yeah, the sky's the limit for him.
Is there a level of comfort that you have just because? You knew everybody in the building already.
Yep.
Most of the guys, even the new guys, you probably helped to recruit a year ago. So is there just a level of comfort you have if you're not necessarily starting from square one with any of the guys?
Yeah, I think it helps from them, from that standpoint. Now, it doesn't mean that your relationship's like that, though, immediately, right? You know what I mean? You still have to put the work in. So you could be a handshake, hey, I know who you are, I remember you from this process, or that type of stuff, but have you really put the work in to get to that point of, like, real, authentic trust? That's a different level, right? So you still got to put that work in from that standpoint. So I have not assumed anything, even with Lathan, who I've had a really tight relationship with for a long time. You don't assume anything, so it's back to square one and be able to build, real authentic relationship.
You've been plenty of places and been recruiting. What's the difference recruiting now at Ohio State when you're walking to a school or a home? Yeah,
for sure. I think the first thing is you have access to everybody in the country, right? So other places you don't have access to that level of player, of person, of recruit. And then, here you have a lot to sell as well, right? When you talk about the Block O and the things that have been represented over time, and then, current tradition and history. I think it's really special, the combination of those things from that standpoint. And then, go ahead.
Does it make it harder, make it easier in terms of there's more pressure, but is there more pressure because the pool is bigger?
Yeah, I think every place has different challenges, right? The guy that you're recruiting at Ohio State is the elite of the elite, and the challenge is getting that recruit to Ohio State, right? It's the closing of that and showing that recruit why Ohio State's the best place in America from him as a person, as a student, and a football player, So we have everything here, and then it's still goes back to relationships, right? To be able to build real, authentic relationships and trust and show them, hey, short-term and long-term, here's an individualized plan for you to be successful. So it's been awesome from that standpoint. I can't say enough positive things.
Matt, you mentioned that Duke you took over safeties for Jim.
Yep.
He was just coordinator at that point, right?
Yep.
Is there a difference between Jim Knowles, strictly a coordinator, or Jim Knowles, position coach and coordinator? I imagine he loves just being able to sit and watch film and do nothing else.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be really involved with the players regardless. So if he's coaching a position, there's more time with that position. When he was a walk-around coordinator in my past, with him, he had more time to spend with other position groups. You know what I mean? So in Indy period, he might be over with the corners, the safeties, or, hey, we're putting together this blitz plan, and he's with the front from that standpoint. So I think it frees him up a little bit to be able to do what he wants to be able to do. But I think he's great regardless. He's going to put the time in to know the guys.
Matt, you talked about your relationship with Tim Walton and Jim Knowles. With this defensive coaching staff, where do you feel, you're obviously a ways away from playing a game, but where do you feel kind of the chemistry and alignment is with the defensive coaching staff?
I think it's really close. I think we talked about that a week ago, sitting in meetings together about, hey, this being a group of guys that are on the same page and same wavelength, and our job is to get the best out of the players. But I think you got real relationships in there. I know I've mentioned that a lot, but I think it gets back to that. So guys can speak freely in there. I think when you're first put in a system, guys are just getting to know each other. You're just learning. You're not saying, well, how about this idea or that type of stuff. Now it's guys know a system, and you're able to bring up different ideas and share and challenge each other. So I think that's unique to be able to do that.
You said Indiana's a developmental program.
Mm-hmm.
How does going from something like that to here, how do you take that developmental idea and still apply it here? Because that's still important here.
Oh, absolutely it is. Yeah, this is the leader in development in the country, right? I mean, shoot, it says it developed here across the wall, right? The difference is what's the product when it walks in the door, right? That's the difference, right? So the freshman that walks in at Ohio State is at a different level than the freshman that walks in many other places in the country, no matter where it is. Now, the development when they're here, absolutely. And that, you better get up to speed fast, right? Because that's real when it's spring ball or it's a mat drill and you're one-on-one against from, that type of challenge across from you. Most of those guys haven't been up against a guy like themselves in their entire life. So the development when you're here, there's no doubt about that. It's just what's the starting point's a little bit different.
Matt, along those lines, you're still kind of fresh coming in here the second time, but you know how this all works. Where do you think this defense, specifically the secondary, can take a jump or another step forward this year? Because let's face it, they were very good last year.
Absolutely.
So where can it get better this year?
Absolutely. I would say playing as one. Playing as one. I mean, you're talking about the number one pass defense in the country right now, right? So the expectation is that, and to be the best in America, BIA, as we say, right? So, but I would say playing as one heartbeat across the board, whether that's in our run fits together and our disguises together being coordinated. I think having that and working hand in hand with Tim and making sure that our guys are functioning at the absolute highest level.
Obviously, you're walking into a pretty good situation. Okay. And you got two of the best safeties in the country. Number one defense, pass defense, all that stuff. But the last person that was in this job isn't here, and part of that is because what happens out of this building, right? Recruiting. Where do you feel like you excel in that space? What makes you comfortable in that space? How do you sell it? Because a lot of guys may not know who you are yet.
For sure, yeah. It starts with relationships, right? I mean, I'm not trying to give you a runaround answer. It's okay, hey, who is that individual? Who is that family? Who are the people that are important, from there? And then who am I, right? What have I been able to do throughout my career? And what is this place? So I think it's a wholesale approach. It's being able to show that individual where are they right now? What are they going to be able to do short term and then long term? And why Ohio State's the best option to be able to do that from there. But it's the time that you put in, right? And it's being able to build that real authentic relationship and to be able to sell Ohio State throughout that process as well.
What did you learn about Matt Guerrieri in the last year that you were away from here?
Good question. What did I learn about myself? I think I talk about Jim Knowles a lot, ability to adapt. You're forced to adapt when you go different places, right? So to Tulsa, to Indiana, and you're forced to adapt in that process, right? So you're learning, I tell people the whirlwind, you're at Ohio State, you have relationships here, right? At Tulsa, I met with every single defensive player one-on-one. You build that relationship. We have 4 defensive installs already done there. You're off the road recruiting and you're at a new place and you don't know anybody, so you're forced to adapt in that situation, right? And I had been at Duke for 10 years, at one place, and then you're at Ohio State, Tulsa, Indiana within 1 year, from that. And your ability to adapt. So I would say that's something that I hadn't had to do before. I knew I could do it, but forced to do in that situation.
How different was this last month walking into high schools, wearing that on your chest as opposed, not to knock any other schools, but it's different, right?
You receive different when you walk in the room. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely. And the Blocko carries a lot of weight. We know that. The recruits know that. And that's why we're sitting here.
Man, you've probably already been over here listening to James Laurinaitis, but Caleb Downs, when you watch him on video, do you already have a preconceived notion of what he brings to the team? And how do you get past that in like spring ball, et cetera? You understand what I'm saying?
For sure. Yeah, so you see the talent on the field. You see the playmaking production, over 100 tackles as a freshman.
Yeah.
You see all of that. Then it's having him articulate, what is he looking at, right? What's the call? What's your job responsibility? Which he could do at a high level. And then from there, it's fine-tuning, okay, here's how we do it within our system, and be able to teach him that, and then be able to try to take him to the next step from there, you know?
Yeah, and have you noticed, has he been very diligent in learning your system so far? I mean, how's that shown up?
A lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. He puts the time in. He's early in the building. He's late to leave. He's put a lot of time in. He knows that he had a short window to be able to learn that, to be able to produce the way that he wants in the spring. So he's put a bunch of time in with myself and Tim. And I've been really, he's like a sponge. I mean, he's really impressive.
And one of the quickie from him is, I look at him as one of maybe the top safeties in the country. I mean, when you look at it. But how do you keep that in mind, but also bring these other guys along? I mean, to know that there's competition there.
Oh, yeah.
Not somebody who's just got to be plug and play.
No, you coach everybody the same. You know, no matter what the name of the jersey number is. So you know what motivates that guy. That may be a little bit different from person to person.
Yeah.
As you build your relationship. But each guy, you're critiquing the player that's on the film, and you're being able to show them, hey, here's how I can be able to make you better. Here's what we need to do in this situation. So yeah, no matter who it is, whether it's Caleb or anybody else, we're going to develop every single guy at a high level.
Now, what was the season opener like last year facing Ohio State? How fun was that to go up with Tom and try to figure out a plan? And then did you think that Jim was going to respond well to the triple option?
Good question. How fun is it to defend all those guys? I don't know if that's considered fun or not, but no, it was great. If you go back a number of years ago in 2019, we opened with Alabama when I was at Duke. Tua was the quarterback. Najee Harris was the running back. That was Judy, Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and Waddle. Nobody even talked about Waddle. So we went 10 personnel. That was the 4 wide. So I have some experience with defending explosive playmakers, right? And when you say, okay, I've obviously been here, and I was not going to let Marvin Harrison or Mecca. I know Marvin caught the one down the sideline. Unfortunately, he stepped out of bounds, but we weren't going to let those guys be able to get easy chunk plays against us, So I didn't know what they were going to do. Opening game, right? You have a lot of camp rules going into those games. So yeah, you put your system in place, but obviously having familiarity of how talented the guys were, you try to put a system in place to be able to limit those guys, So obviously it wasn't enough, but probably gave you guys a couple things to be able to talk about at least, So, yeah, and then you talk about triple option. Yeah, I was telling some of these guys beforehand, I'm saying what's up to Jim and the guys pregame or whatever, and I'm just holding back. I said, I can't wait until you got to adjust all this, because I had obviously gone against it all camp. But no, it's great to be able to compete against those guys. But yeah, once toe hits leather, all that friend stuff goes out the window. It's about competing and putting your guys in position to win.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.